So my name's Paul Simmonds. I'm associate professor in physics and material science and engineering. So I have a joint appointment. I teach classes in the physics department. So I teach a 300 level class, which is introductory quantum physics. And I teach a split 400, 500 level class, solid state physics, which builds on what we do in quantum. Just-in-time teaching is something I've been using in my classes for about probably 5 or 6 years. And I first heard about it when I went to a workshop for new faculty at the American Association of Physics Teachers. Although I'm sure it's very widely used. And essentially, the technique, I think, has lots of benefits. And this is how it works. So you assign some reading before the class starts, which many of us do, but many of our students don't actually do the reading, right? So you assign some reading, could be from your own notes, could be from the textbook, could be for them to go and find something online. And then you set a couple of short questions, which basically check their understanding of what they've read. And the idea is that the emphasis is on them doing the reading, and so the sort of bar to entry for the questions should be fairly low. So they shouldn't be very time consuming. And I tell my students, if it takes them more than maybe 5 minutes to answer the questions, they're spending too much time on it. And I do a mixture of, sometimes I do short answer questions, and it should be 2, maybe 3 sentence answers, or it might be multiple choice. But it's really just to test that they understand what they've read. And I grade that, but I make the grading sort of biased towards them participating. So if they answer the 2 or 3 questions and get them right, they get 10 out of 10. If they attempt the questions and they get one wrong, they still get 8 out of 10. If they don't do the assignment, they get 0. So even just kind of putting something down is going to get them most of the points. So the emphasis is really on just giving it a shot and doing the reading. That's what the students have to do. From my point of view, I then have to go in and grade their answers ahead of class. And I make sure that the deadline for their answers is 2 hours ahead of the class time, so I have time to go in and review. Of course, I'm giving them the points that they're due, but I'm also looking for maybe answers that are consistently wrong across the class. And if a lot of people are missing one of the questions or both of the questions, that tells me that my notes or what I've set them to read is not really explaining that concept to them very well. And so this is where the just-in-time part comes in. I can adjust what I'm planning to cover in class to cover that concept or those concepts in greater detail, and make sure I really give them the understanding that they didn't get from the reading. On the other hand, of course, right, if the class get everything right, then that tells me that they have understood the concepts. I don't need to drill down into those as much during the class session, and I can spend more time on other things. And so it allows me just to kind of get a sense for where they are coming into the class, and helps me to fine tune what I'm going to talk about and the material I'm going to cover during class. So that's how it works. And yeah, I feel like it really does benefit me. All right, I can make sure my class is hopefully as effective as possible, and I'm covering material which they need. And from the student's point of view, there is an additional amount of work they have to do. So the reading, maybe a chapter from the book or something, which I imagine might take them half an hour or so before each class session. But the benefits are that they come in with some kind of basic level of knowledge about what we're going to cover. It's not like they're coming into a class session on the Schrodinger equation and they've never heard of the Schrodinger equation, right? And so that, I think that sort of base level that I can assume everyone in the class has really helps us all to start on the same page. Yeah, so that in a nutshell is the just-in-time teaching, at least as I use it. it's been a while since I had the formal kind of introduction on it, and maybe I'm missing some of the nuances, but that's how I've been using it, and it seems to work in that regard for my classes. Yeah, there were a few things. I was very eager. Okay, so when I first started at Boise State, I had no teaching experience, like many new faculty. All my efforts were spent on research, and so I did what, again, which probably a lot of people do, is just to do the whole lecture, stand up there, write on the board for an hour and a half, and then go home. And it became quickly clear to me that there were other, perhaps more effective ways of teaching. So by going to workshops at the CTR and speaking to other people and attending this new faculty workshop in DC at the AAPT, I kind of opened my eyes to different approaches that I could incorporate into my classes. And this seemed to be one that was a fairly approachable thing that I could do. It wasn't like flipping my whole classroom or something. I needed to assign some reading. I need to assign some questions. I needed to do some grading, but really it wasn't a huge amount of work. And so I just wanted to try it out and see if it would be beneficial. So that was one thing that prompted me. Another thing actually that prompted me was prior knowledge that I was assuming the students had from taking their prereqs. So in mathematics, I was assuming that they knew how to do just like multiplication of vectors, dot products, cross products, or like, using simple complex number. For whatever reason, there were students each year who couldn't remember that. Maybe they took those classes a long time ago and things like that. And it used to kind of frustrate me, I'll be honest, that people didn't have this kind of what I would consider basic knowledge. And so I thought about how I could take away that sense of frustration. And so what I do now is I build in some review questions into those just-in-time assignments on the topics which I need them to be familiar with. And I even give them a little cheat sheet, a review of, the Euler identity or whatever it happens to be that I need them to have for that class session. And then they have to answer the question on it. And it just forces them to kind of go back and review those topics, which they did in the past. So it's good for them. They get to review. It means I don't get stressed out, and everyone's a winner. So there's lots of ways that you can use this. And those were some of the ways some of the things that prompted me to start using it. As I said, I think out of all the active learning, or whatever people call it now, high impact practices. Anyway, I think it really is one of the quote unquote easiest things you can try, with spending a little time thinking about what you want students to know come into your class, assigning something to read, and just setting a couple of easy questions to test their knowledge is probably stuff that you've already thought about even before. What do you want them to know before they come into the class? And so I think it is one of the more approachable things that I heard about. The other thing I'll say is that I started asking my students in the end of semester, course evaluations. I added my own questions, and they were, did you do all the just-in-time teaching assignment? And they always 100% answer yes, which is definitely not true because I grade them, so I know it's not true, but they always say 100% yes. Then I ask them, did you find it useful? Could you see the benefit of doing this? And, there's always a few people who put 1 and 2, but the vast majority of the class put 4 and 5, saying that they definitely see how it benefited them. And the third question I ask is, would you like to have a just-in-time teaching in future classes? And again, there's a range, but the majority of people say that they would like to see just-in-time assignments in their future classes. And so for people that are hesitant about adopting this, or at least just trying it out, I would say that, at least from my very small data set of a few hundred students I've done this with over the last 6 years, the majority of them, they may not enjoy doing the extra reading, but they can see the benefit of it, and they tell me that they would like to see this in future classes. And so if students are telling me that they like it and they would like to see more of it, and the amount of work needed to get it started is comparatively low, I'd say give it a shot.